Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neil has issued a blunt warning to hostile foreign powers seeking to influence democratic processes in Australia. It comes as she unveils new measures aimed at preventing a repeat of last year's Optus and Medibank cyber attacks. One of those giving evidence at a parliamentary hearing into foreign interference laws today was the Deputy Vice-Chancellor International at the University of Melbourne, Professor Michael Wesley. He joined me earlier, where I began by asking him about his request for more clarity around how foreign influence legislation should be implemented.
To us, it's not a particularly well-drafted piece of legislation. It takes a lot of compliance costs and burdens, and it doesn't actually get us to dealing with foreign interference very, very well or very effectively. As my colleague at UNSW, George Williams, calls it, it's a high compliance, low effectiveness piece of legislation. It's not well drafted. We actually spend a lot of time and money and legal fees actually interpreting the legislation as it applies to activities that we think may be captured under the Act. Quite often we spend a lot of time and money determining that they're not captured under the Act. And we would urge the government to have another look at this Act and be much more clear about what they're trying to achieve, and much better at guiding universities to be able to really address the underlying risks of foreign interference much more effectively than this Act does.
Because when I say you, I mean the sector, the top universities already have a university foreign interference task force, which does work effectively. Can the government use that capacity to help minimise some of those legal demands, which are basically then, if you're not spending dollars on this, you'd be spending it on research and other things?
That's right. And so that's essentially the point that we've made. Since the FITS Act was passed in 2018, we've had a range of different regulations, acts, requirements come on universities. And one of the points we've made is there doesn't seem to be very much coherence amongst them. There's been no government review on what's working, what's not working, where are the overlaps and where are the gaps. And we would urge the government and the parliamentary committee that I've just been talking to do a comprehensive review. We do think the UFIT task force is working well. We would like to see that become a much more central element in the universities and government working together to make sure that our university sector is as resilient as possible against foreign interference.
How much foreign interference is happening in the university sector?
Well, very hard to tell. I think I'm right in saying that we have seen no case that has made it to light of bona fide foreign interference that we can see. There's been a lot of allegations, there's been a lot of suspicion, but we've seen no actual evidence, as we have in cases in the United States. So it's very hard to answer that question. One of the things that the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security report of last year suggested was that ASIO provides an annual report on foreign interference in universities. I think that's a really good idea. From within a university, I think having a little bit more clarity from within government about where they are seeing the foreign interference threats would actually help us in design our systems much better. Because
the fundamental point within a university, unlike a lot of other industries, is global collaboration is central to a lot of what you do, whether it be medical research or whatever else. There are so many areas where you need to collaborate with international partners.
That's right, and the nature of academic research is that it is by and large all done publicly. So the way that you validate the research that you've done is to publish it and to have others critically assess it. And so one of the things that people within universities find it a little bit hard to understand is when governments then want to put kind of national interest tests and foreign interference tests around research that is going to be published freely anyway. Now, granted that there are certain types of research that are dual use, could be used for weapons systems and surveillance systems and so on. The entire sector, I think, is very alive to that sort of research. We have put in place very strict compliance mechanisms around that, but the vast majority of research is open anyway, and I don't think would detract from the national interest at all.
How much do you need to reassure some of the politicians that it's not just a university sector trying to protect its book, essentially
Sure.
your dollars, because it costs a lot for compliance, and that you are taking it seriously?
Look, I think we've made huge strides in the last few years through organisations like the UFIT task force, but I think there's a long way to go. We've essentially got two different tribes and two different cultures involved here. The university academic culture is one of openness with knowledge. You acquire knowledge from others, you work on it, you create knowledge and you share it with others. The government kind of culture is you don't share knowledge. You keep knowledge. Knowledge can be used against you, and so you tend to be very focused on controlling the flow of information. Now, obviously, there are elements where the two worlds overlap, and that's that dual-use research that I talked about. But I think we as universities have a great deal of educating to do of government, that the vast majority of what we do is open by nature, it doesn't contravene national interests, and the more international collaboration we do, the stronger Australia becomes.
Professor Michael Wesley from the University of Melbourne, thank you as always for your time. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.